I'd like to have had more, but you know how it goes. I called to order the meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers, December 16th, 2021. This meeting is being held remotely due to the pandemic and our determination that it is not prudent for us to meet together or feasible to have members of the public in our usual meeting place. This meeting is being conducted and has been noticed in accordance with Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021, and all other applicable terms of the open meeting law. All votes will be by roll call. Beginning with taking attendance. Manager Hijmati.
Here.
Manager Miller.
Here.
Manager Sando.
Here.
Manager Loftus.
Here.
Manager Olson.
Here.
Manager Maxwell.
Here.
And Manager White. We are all in attendance. Thank you. Last meeting, I forgot to approve the agenda first, so I'm not forgetting that tonight. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Sando. Is there a second?
Hijmati, second.
Thank you, Manager Hijmati. Voting on approving the agenda, Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Olson.
Aye.
Manager Loftus.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Manager Hijmati.
Aye.
And Manager White votes aye. We can move on to the consent agenda. On the agenda tonight are approval of the minutes of the November 18th board meeting, approval of the 3 check registers for general checking account, surety checking account, and wire transfers, and 7 resolutions concerning selection and authorization to contract for government relations, engineering, water quality lab analysis, monitoring equipment purchase, approval of winter commercial seines in 6 Mile Creek Halsted Bayside watershed, authorization to execute a contract amendment for the 6 Mile Marsh Prairie Trail additional design services, and approval of the 2022 board committee and meeting calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Hijmati, so moved.
Thank you, Manager Hijmati. Is there a second?
Sando.
Thank you, Manager Sando. On voting on the consent agenda then, Manager Hijmati.
Aye.
Manager Loftus.
Aye.
Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Thank
Manager
you.
Miller, aye.
Manager Olson.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
And Manager White votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. I won't give a president's report per se. We'll roll that into the mod annual meeting. But Manager Miller, could we get 2 reports from you on the Policy and Planning Committee meeting and Citizens Advisory Committee meeting?
The Policy and Planning Committee had a robust discussion with staff and board members on the CIP program and the process of developing a capital improvement program for the next 5 years, and the strategies and philosophies behind the choices and the emphasis. Very good discussion, and it's everybody participated well, and we're I think we're well on our way to have a good process to on our capital projects. And on the CAC, there was a staff conflict, so she wasn't able to come to the meeting and make the presentation that was scheduled to be discussed. So they talked about other issues with the CAC, and one member was leaving. I wish I could remember his name. I'm embarrassed. Yeah, and it'll be a loss to the CAC, but he's got other obligations that take precedence. So they celebrated his board membership, and I'm really impressed with the enthusiasm and quality that the CAC addresses the issues that we've been giving them, which is most recently visited with the climate adaptation strategy that they worked with the staff and laid out for us that's before us. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Manager Miller. I'll just give a skeletal outline of the MOD annual meeting business, and then just walk right down the line and ask all of you who attended for your observations or thoughts. In the business meeting, sorry, get my notes here. The bylaws were, some minor changes were approved. The budget was approved as presented. And on all the resolutions passed in one form or another, 2 were combined and all but 2 were amended. So we had sort of a collaborative drafting process in a very long resolutions committee meeting. Those resolutions will be taken into the legislative program and balanced out with what we already have. And tomorrow morning, there's going to be a debriefing meeting for the Events and Resolutions Committee. So any thoughts that you have for me to carry on into that committee meeting, I'd certainly appreciate. And I'll turn it to you, Manager Olson.
Yeah, that meeting where we were, quote, re-wordsmithing and working on the resolutions lasted into the wee hours of the night. I thought it was going to be a short, brief yay, nay, but holy mackerel, Andy. What finally happened, though, is a tremendous amount of unity in terms of voting. We had some pretty tough issues, and everything was 80% or better in terms of approval. So, but lots of language changes. The language was pretty sensitive, and we did rely on counsel to coach us on some of that. So it was really rewarding. I was going to also say that a lot of the presentations reaffirmed my gut feel that everything we are doing as the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District is what everybody else is or wants to do. The idea of collaborating with large groups of stakeholders and the idea of multiple funding sources and large scale projects was very common, including ones done in Iowa. I mean, it was like eerily similar to the way we approach the work we do. So all in all, it was a very well presented and cohesive MOD session. I really appreciated the involvement.
I'm glad you were there, Manager Olson. Manager Loftus, this is the first one for you. We can return to Manager Loftus. Manager Hechmati.
Sorry, took a minute to unmute. You're talking about the MOD conference, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The thing that I thought was would be really helpful for us now and possibly in the future is that they did a couple of segments on onboarding new board managers. You know, we've been talking about how to, we have been talking on our board about how to bring people on so that there's continuity going from, as new members come on. And there were 2 presentations. There were several presentations, and Louis started the first one and did a substantial contribution of it and did a beautiful job of it. And that could be a resource to us in the future if we have that. That's probably the biggest thing that came for me.
Arun, would you elaborate on that? What part of that do you think we could use ourselves?
I'd have to look at that. It began with Louis talking about how all the legislation that came about and all the and all the sort of the legal requirements and so on that are necessary. And then all that I thought was really extremely helpful. It was, when I went through my onboarding, he said some of the things, but he really expanded it quite a bit beyond that and put in a lot more stuff that I thought was very useful for onboarding.
And of course, all the sessions were recorded. They're on
Yes.
the MOD website, so
Yes.
you can go back and get refreshed also.
Yes, exactly. So it's very powerful. And there were some additional things after that, but some of them were not completely applicable to us because they were focusing on the One Watershed, One Plan, and they were talking about, helping rural communities come together on one watershed, one plan. And that wasn't necessarily always relevant to us, but it also helped give me a perspective on the kind of problems that rural watershed districts face. It helped me learn something about them.
Thank you, Manager Hijmati. Manager Sando.
I don't believe I was attended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Manager Loftus. If she returns later, we'll try to catch up with her then. The upcoming meeting and event schedule, we just approved under item 7.7, the meeting calendar. So we will be meeting on the 13th and 27th for committee and board. And if we approve item 11.4 regarding the CAC, there will be a January 19th meeting with Manager Maxwell as the liaison. Are there any other events or meetings people would like to report on? All right, then let's move on to our first action item, which is 11.1, Resolution 21089, Ms. Manlick.
Thank you, President White. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. All right, is everybody seeing my first slide?
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Good evening, President White, Board of Managers. This evening, I am bringing forth Resolution 21-089, authorization to execute a contract with Stantec Engineering to develop a feasibility study to assess the viability of a filtration system at Lamplighter Pond in St. Louis Park. So you may recall that at the September 9th Board of Managers meeting that the Lamplighter Pond system is the project that staff have identified as a viable option for the funds established by Lifetime Fitness in 2018. So the study will provide staff with a better understanding of the water quality treatment potential of the system, as well as the associated costs to provide that treatment. So tonight I'll be providing a brief recap of the cooperative agreement that the district formed with Lifetime in 2018, an overview of the scope and timeline for that proposed feasibility study, and an outline of next steps for advancing the project. So as you may remember, in 2018, the board approved a variance to the stormwater management rule for a building expansion project at the Lifetime Fitness location in St. Louis Park. The variance was conditioned on the execution of a cooperative agreement between the district and Lifetime, where a $490,000 escrow account was established using Lifetime's funds to be held by the district and used to fund a future regional stormwater improvement project. So under the terms of the agreement, the district agreed to use its capacities to identify a project that would provide comparable stormwater treatment to what was required on site. And the district must take formal action to advance a project within 5 years of the agreement date, and that date is August 23rd of 2023. So just as a reminder, the treatment goals for the future project were a total phosphorus reduction of 7.2 pounds per year and an abstraction volume of almost 29,000 cubic feet, which brings us to the project that staff have identified. So as you may recall from the September 9th meeting, staff identified an underground filtration system located at Lamplighter Pond in St. Louis Park as the most viable option that we reviewed. So the system, which will be tied into an existing city-owned lift station, is estimated to provide around 20 pounds of total phosphorus reduction per year. The feasibility study of the project will allow us to kind of home in on a more specific amount of treatment that could be provided by the system, as well as a cost to provide that level of treatment. So at that September meeting, the board directed staff to connect with Lifetime on the progress that we've made towards identifying a project and to develop a scope of work for the feasibility study. So with that, staff met with Lifetime in early December to provide an overview of the Lamplighter Pond project, and Lifetime expressed their support of the district proceeding with feasibility at that time. So that brings us to the scope of the feasibility work. So the first phase of the feasibility study will be centered on data collection and review. So that includes topographic, boundary, and utility surveys, as well as soil borings and a review of plans associated with the existing lift station. The second phase includes preliminary design, which will focus on calculating the filter and pump sizing, as well as a preliminary site plan and layout specifications. So finally, we're expecting a technical memo in mid-February, which will provide a summary of methods, results, and recommendations. So the study is not to exceed $27,800, which will be drawn from the existing escrow account. So on to next steps. If the board approves the resolution to contract this feasibility study, staff will engage the City of St. Louis Park to discuss operations and maintenance of the system, cost sharing opportunities, and the city's review processes and timelines. So once we clarify the city's involvement and incorporate their feedback into the potential project, staff will return to the board with the results of the feasibility study, as well as a recommendation on advancing the project to design. So if the board chooses to proceed with the project based on the results of the feasibility study, staff will draft a cooperative agreement with the city that outlines the project and will return to the board for advancement to design and construction. So with that, staff recommends board approval of resolution 21-089 to authorize the district administrator to prepare and execute a contract with Stantec to conduct a feasibility study of Lamplighter Pond with an amount not to exceed $27,800. With that, does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Manlick. May I have a motion to adopt resolution 21-089?
So moved.
Maxwell moves.
Manager Loftus moves. Manager Maxwell, I'll take you as a second.
Good.
Questions for Ms. Manlick?
I can't find my hand, the hand, raise my hand
Oh,
thing,
yes.
so. I guess my other question would be, is there any red flags thrown up by the City of St. Louis Park to kind of throw a monkey wrench into this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Not as of yet. Staff have met with the City of St. Louis Park from across multiple departments a number of times as we've looked for various projects throughout the search area, and all of those times the city's been very supportive of our work and of the project that we proposed. We had a site visit at Lamplighter Pond with the city from a few different departments this past summer, and they were all very supportive at that time.
Thank you.
Manager Olson has his hand up, Sherry.
Go ahead, Manager Olson.
Hey, I think, Aaron, this question is more for Chris Meehan. As I look through their proposal that Todd Shoemaker sent us, I see Rena, Jacob, and Lewis. Are these new folks with your company? I don't recognize their names, and I'm just curious as to who's making up the team.
Yeah, no, Bill, those are great questions. Todd, unfortunately, is an old name to the district. I think he actually graduated James out of the permitting program. So Todd's actually been an engineer with our group for about 25 years. And so he's been helping. He's done several of these recirculation systems. And so we've had him a part of it. Rena is also assisting with the district's permitting program. And then Lewis is also one of our wastewater engineers that does a lot of pump circulation. So long story short, not new names, probably just new names as far as showing up in the proposals, but all people are very familiar with the district.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
I thought James was going to hold up his certification of graduation from the permit program.
You know, he has it framed on the wall. I can't really hold it up, Chris. Okay, I made that up. If we're ready to vote, then voting on the resolution 089, Manager Sando,
Aye.
Manager Olson,
Aye.
Manager Miller,
Aye.
Manager Maxwell,
Aye.
Manager Loftus,
Aye.
Manager Hejmati,
Aye.
and Manager White votes aye. Thank you, Ms. Manlick. We'll look forward to the next phase. The next item, 11.2, is Resolution 21090, authorization to initiate stakeholder involvement. Ms. Christopher.
Good evening, President White, managers. Give me just a moment to share my screen.
Certainly.
All right, one moment. Here we go. Okay. Good evening. Tonight, I'll be requesting authorization to initiate the stakeholder engagement process, as well as seeking board feedback on a proposed name change for the responsive program. So just as a brief background, this process would essentially be looking to pick up where we left off with the stakeholder engagement that we did for the 2017 Watershed Management Plan, which was really focused on building awareness of the district's new balanced urban ecology strategy and approach of working in partnership with the land use community, which garnered broad support from our communities for the district's new vision and approach. And since then, of course, we've been working internally to align the organization around the new vision, including the development of these two key initiatives that are aimed at really improving that integration at the water kind of land use interface. So the development of the responsive program and the alignment of our permitting program. So over the past several months, staff has reviewed and refined the policy recommendations for both of these initiatives with the board and are now ready to engage our external partners to vet and build support for these initiatives. And so a summary of the policy direction that's been discussed with the board most recently in September is included in your packet as attachments B and C. And then in October, the board reviewed a draft stakeholder engagement plan, including the goals for the process, the audiences, engagement methods, and a estimated schedule for that process. And that is included as attachment A. And that has been expanded on a little since our discussion in October to include key messaging, as well as more detail around the TAC process, which I'll cover in a moment. So just to briefly recap the goals for this process, they're really twofold. So first is to ensure successful rollout of these initiatives by building understanding of the intent and the changes that are being proposed, and then using the TAC to really refine those programs. And then also to build excitement and support for how we can improve that coordination.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
James, sorry to interrupt your flow. I'm not sure if you're trying to move through slides. We're still on the title slide.
Really? Well, that's bizarre. It says my screen sharing is paused. Let me see. I'm not sure how that happened. Okay, how about now?
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry about that. I must have bumped something. Well, I don't think you missed too much, all right, in terms of what was on the screen. So yeah, just going back to goals then. Like I said, short term, kind of building support for these two initiatives, and then longer term, we want to use this effort to really re-engage our communities and work with them to develop a more systematic and thoughtful approach for how we maintain connection and improve coordination long term. And so just as a kind of high level review of the engagement methods, The primary engagement method we're proposing for this effort is really the establishment of the Technical Advisory Committee, which would be comprised of our primary contacts at the cities, the counties, Park Board, Three Rivers, and it would be similar to the TAC that we had for the Watershed Management Plan. And really, we're looking to vet these programs with those who are engaging with them directly on a day-to-day basis. So other interested parties, such as policymakers, state agencies, other staff would be invited to attend the kickoff. They would be invited to request individual meetings where there's interest, as well as sign up for updates, such as TAC meeting summaries. And then finally, we're proposing some targeted engagement with the private development community. So looking to set up some input sessions further along in the process where we could get input on, well, vet the rule changes, as well as get some guidance and insight on how to effectively engage our private partners and incentivize early coordination and really develop that process in a way that works for them. And so just to speak a little bit more about the TAC process, with that being sort of the main method, so the TAC role would be really to vet and refine the work products for these two initiatives, as well as advise on methods to improve ongoing engagement. And we've currently planned a series of 7 meetings that would be about 2 hours each, spanning from February to August. And the topics for those are outlined in your packet. And in terms of membership, I know there were some questions around this last time, and we'd be looking to invite participation from the cities, counties, SWCDs, Three Rivers, Park Board, and we'd be using kind of the soft rollout calls, as we're calling them, over the next month or two, as well as the kickoff invitation itself to solicit interest in serving on the TAC. And so when we do that, we want to establish some parameters that we could consider when selecting members, if there is a need to, manage group size, or, if we get really robust interest in serving on the TAC. And so one of the recommendations is to target a size of 15 to 20 members, really just in an effort to ensure that it's an effective group and that everyone can participate and provide input. We'd also like to see broad geographic representation across our communities, as well as ideally a variety of kind of roles and departments that interact with these programs. So planners, public works, engineers, water resources, all have different touch points with both of these programs. And so just for context, for the Watershed Management Plan, we had 20 members that applied and were appointed, 4 of which were agency staff, which were not targeting for this series of discussions. And so 16 members across kind of our cities and counties. And so I think, we could reasonably expect a pretty similar group. And so I think, falling within that 50 to 20 range seems reasonable, and that we would likely be able to appoint them all and not be potentially even needing to apply these criteria. But we wanted to communicate them up front in the event that we do want to. So obviously, the board can choose to exceed 20 if there is broad interest. We don't want to be turning people away. We want all the communities to have a seat at the table if they wish. So we would be asking the board to appoint the members, and the appointment would be for kind of this limited term of, kind of this series of discussions from about February to August. And then after that, we'd be looking to get the members' input and kind of reassess our approach for moving forward. If we want to maintain that same group, as we move into other topics like climate, if we want to bring in additional members, different members, or have maybe, complementary committees that are feeding into that work. And so trying to provide just a clear call to action, a clear term for this initial work, and then reevaluate our approach moving from there. So the last piece I wanted to talk about was responsive program name. So as the board knows, we've used the term responsive program, responsive model internally over the years to talk about this approach in contrast to our focal approach. But we recognize that it's not necessarily the best name to use externally. It's not, very descriptive of what we're trying to do with the program. And so we recognize that there probably is a better option there. And I believe this was flagged by board members before as well in previous discussions. And so knowing that this name hasn't really been used publicly to date, we think now is a good time to establish a new name, excuse me, before initiating this engagement effort. And so staff developed a list of options and discussed it with our communications consultants, John Himley and Tom Horner, and landed on a recommendation of the Minnehaha Land and Water Partnership. And a couple of reasons for that is, it ties it to our geography. It also reflects the program intent, the BOE vision, and just really our brand of working in partnership to integrate land and water. And so that's our recommendation at this point. We did consider, whether there should be, a more robust naming process, or if that should be potentially tied to, kind of the brand refresh that's being proposed with the new website. But kind of where we landed in talking with John and Tom was that it's best to kind of go with a stronger name now before initiating the engagement, rather than kind of changing it down the road. So I wanted to pause there and see if there's feedback from the board on that name, if you're comfortable kind of making that switch at this time, or if you think a more robust process is warranted.
I have a question, Ms. Christopher. The resolution says responsive program. Were you thinking that we could get a decision tonight? And if so, will we amend the resolution, or were you just looking for input on the name question?
Yeah, Manager White, I'm looking for input this evening on whether, if the board is comfortable making the switch, then we would use that name moving forward and kind of update any materials. I don't know if, yeah, I guess if the resolution would need to be amended, but we would, for any, external engagement moving forward, we would use the new name.
Thank you. First, is there a motion to adopt resolution 21090?
Sando, so moved.
Thank you, Manager Sando. Is there a second?
Hejmati, second.
Thank you, Manager Hejmati. Now, any questions for Ms. Christopher?
Manager Olson has a question.
Manager Olson, go ahead.
Is there any specific reason why you dropped the word creek? Because that Minnehaha doesn't mean anything to me. Minnehaha Creek
Sure.
means everything to me, so.
Sure, yeah, Manager Olson, that's a good question. I think, I suppose part of it is length, and I think part of it is also just not wanting to seem like we're favoring, creek versus lake communities, but I suppose even with Minnehaha, that could maybe be, a feeling, but I think, yeah, like I said, that was kind of based on input from John and Tom of not wanting to put kind of our whole name in there, but still have some indication of that this is tied specifically to our watershed, to our geography. But
Yeah, because
certainly open to
unfortunately, when I look at that, I think, okay, it must be the land around Minnehaha Falls or something. It really, it's us. And so if I go out there and I call it Bill's Land and Water Partnership versus Bill Olson, I mean, call me centrist, but I know that when I moved to Minnesota, I was depressed that there were 28 pages of Olsons in the white pages. But I was really proud that there were only 3 pages of William Olsons. It still didn't differentiate me very well. And so that's a pretty common word, I think our name is Minnehaha Creek, and then, hyphen or whatever, watershed district. But I'm just uncomfortable with it just being a Minnehaha Land Water Partnership. It doesn't sound like we're involved.
Thank you, Manager Olson. Other questions or opinions?
I love the word partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very descriptive and inviting. Land and water isn't helpful, I don't believe, in the terms of a recruiting someone to be interested, maybe like improvements or I don't have a better word, so I just will stop making suggestions, but I really like the word partnership.
Thank you.
Could we use
Others?
MCWD, Land and Water Partnership? It's shorter.
I think we can do whatever we want. So I think what Becky's approach tonight is to just float the notion that we probably do need to change the name and collect preliminary feedback on if there's comfort. We've already gotten good feedback on it not being entirely descriptive of the entity, and that land and water doesn't necessarily reflect what we want to accomplish, improvements or projects. So I think we can get some good feedback tonight and then bring back maybe either a recommendation or a slate of options.
Thank you, Mr. Whisker. My opinion is that if you're going to say the whole thing, MCWD, or the words, that makes sense to put creek in there. But if you're not saying watershed district, then saying Minnehaha Creek does seem to limit it to part of the watershed district. So I like the idea of just Minnehaha, for what it's worth. Any other thoughts about that before we discuss the resolution?
Sando, can I make just one suggestion?
Please do.
Yeah, thank you. Minnehaha Creek and Land Partnership. Creek designates water, so you can drop the water. So it's Minnehaha Creek, so we know what organization it is, and Land Partnership, just dropping the water, adding creek.
Thank you. Anything else on the name? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask the same. I think, like James said, it seems like we're not in a position to make a decision tonight, which I don't think is necessary. We've got some time before we'll actually be sending off these initial mailings. So I think, yeah, we'll take any other feedback and keep thinking it over in terms of options and come back to the board with that.
Hey, Becky, my only other comment is you had a lot of smart people thinking on it, so I'm not trying to second guess it, but you probably noodled on whether you use the word fund or grant or foundation. You know, if you shorten it up, I'm not sure what the value is of identifying ourselves in the title. I guess I don't know what the inherent value is of announcing ourselves in it, beyond it being a long acronym. But is it just our partnership foundation, our partnership grant, our partnership fund? Do we not want to call too much attention to the money aspect of it? I don't know. But those would be my, and what's the value in calling out our name in it? I don't know. Those would be my questions on it.
Sure.
I think that's good feedback. And anytime we talk about this as a program, regardless of the name, it'll be accompanied with us talking about it, the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District's research and monitoring program. So I think that's useful feedback in terms of embedding the name in whatever we decide to call the actual program.
Actually, James, as a subset of our own name, this does work because, if we have our title around it, and this is a subset of what we're doing, I am, I guess, comfortable with that, just the way it is, because if you had to approach this as a political party, then I'd want the creek in there. But if it's an effort that we're working on, I guess I could accept it. Thanks.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that later then. Any thoughts about the resolution itself? Very exciting to be at this stage. Then voting on adopting the resolution, Manager Sando?
Aye.
Loftus?
Aye.
Maxwell?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Edgemati?
Aye.
And Sherry, White votes yes also. Thank you. I was distracted there. Okay, moving on then to item 11.3, resolution 21091, authorization to execute a contract for the 2D pilot model build. Ms. Cermak.
All right, have you guys seen the presentation mode?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, good evening, President White, Board of Managers. I'm here tonight seeking authorization to execute a contract for the 2D pilot model build. I'm going to walk us through just some project context on how this pilot model specifically kind of nests within our watershed-wide build. And then I'll walk us through the RFP process that we've been running kind of over the past couple of months, the evaluation criteria we've used to assess the firms, and wrap up with staff's recommendation. So 2 weeks ago at committee, James led a great discussion just around climate change and what we're going to continue to see in our watershed. We're going to continue to experience unpredictable weather, increased intensity in our rainfall, the breakaway from these seasonal norms. And we're also going to see periods on the opposite end of the spectrum with regional drought. And as we continue to experience these changes in weather, we're going to see our systems, both natural and built, be stressed and damaged. And as we continue to experience more of those events, city staff, taxpayers, we know we're going to get questions. There's going to be questions asked, and they're going to want answers. So for us to better help our communities answer those questions and adapt to climate change, we really better need to understand how water is moving through our system and better predict the impacts that it's going to have in the future. And so in order to do that, we really need to have a more granular level understanding of our system than we do now. Our current modeling tools don't support kind of that fine resolution of detail with the pipe networks, the groundwater understanding. And so that requires us to build out new tools. And that's really what this first kind of pillar of our framework is all about, getting the tools in place and really being able to quantify and characterize the impacts of climate change. So when we look at this 5-year trajectory, we've called attention to the need of this 2D watershed-wide model. We know we have support from our partners. They've written multiple letters of support for us to chase $800,000 of LCCMR funding to build this watershed-wide. But we also know building it in a high resolution, there's going to be some challenges. A key barrier in building a model like that is the need to coordinate and obtain storm sewer data from 29 different communities, the 2 counties. And we need to be able to automate that in order to kind of sustain and maintain this model over a long period of time. So to address that barrier and kind of figure out how to share and process storm sewer information, we decided to pursue the pilot model build. And I just wanted to draw attention in this kind of 5-year trajectory, kind of leading to our 2027 comp plan. This pilot model is a pretty small, piece of that pie. But the findings, the deliverables that we're gaining from this pilot model work are really going to set us up for a successful next 4 years. So in an overview, this pilot is really aiming to mitigate 2 areas of risk, the technical side and the relational side with this data sharing piece. So working with the city of Edina is really going to help us understand what it's going to look like to coordinate and share data with a partner. Edina specifically, we have a great working relationship with them. They're progressive on climate. They have an extensive and complex storm sewer database, and they've already built out portions of their city in 2D models. So they're going to be a great partner to have to provide feedback throughout and give us that kind of third-party model validation as we go. The actual RFP that we developed, the scope of work for the pilot is really centered around the technical challenge of pipelining this storm sewer data from its source to the model and helping us figure out what model is best suited for that pipeline. So walking out of this pilot model, We want to have an automated workflow for developing those model inputs. We really want to understand the benefits and drawbacks associated with each of these two modeling platforms we're testing, and ultimately make a decision on which model we carry out watershed-wide. So leading up to kind of scope development, we brought that forward on October 7th. So the board authorized the scope of work and the release of the RFP on October 7th. Right around, leading up to that, staff did scan national firms that had experience in both the modeling platforms that we're using, along with some scripting expertise. So we had reached out to 9 firms, 4 of which did respond. We received proposals from Geosyntec, HDR, Kimley-Horn, and Stantec, all of which were kind of right in $2,000 within our kind of total project budget of $242,000. We did decide to advance all 4 proposers to interviews, where we really, dove into their approach to the project and the unique differences that each firm took to the work. We took advantage of submitting follow-up questions where we needed additional detail. We reached out to references relating to kind of the firm's ability and project manager's abilities. We, of course, had Edina involved through the entire proposal and interview process, giving us a kind of a unique, city lens to this project. Manager Miller and Manager Hejmati are also, appointed to this project. And so they gave us great insight from a policy perspective on kind of the proposals, the interviews, and kind of which each firm would bring to this project. And lastly, we capitalized on a relationship we have with Metro GIS, specifically getting third-party review from a key contributor to an effort within Metro GIS to standardize storm sewer data sets. And so he really brought a unique perspective, someone who's thought a lot about what it would take to partner with cities and share data in this way. Overall, through all these data points we gathered, we really, compared it and came back to this core criteria, really looking at each firm's project understanding, understanding where this pilot project really sits in relation to our watershed-wide build, the ability of their project team and the skill set there, and their overall project approach and balance to the work. So based on all those data points we gathered, our panel and partners are recommending Kimley-Horn to carry out this contract. They really laid out a clear approach to how they were going to accomplish the data automation piece, which staff really kind of view as the biggest technical challenge within the scope. And they had a lot of past experience doing that work. They also were a unique team in that they brought software engineers to the team, and we think that's going to be a big benefit relating to the scripting work. There's going to be a high level of documentation and a high level of kind of packaging and polishing at the end, which will really be beneficial when we go to scale and use these scripts for other municipalities. The team, definitely demonstrated strong H&H modeling, 2D modeling abilities in both of the platforms that we're using for the project. And overall, just a really cohesive team that seemed to, work well together and led by a really strong senior project manager. So with that, staff is recommending approval to authorize a contract with Kimley-Horn to carry out this work. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cermak. Good report. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2191?
Move approval.
Hejmati, so moved.
Dick Miller, I'll take your motion, and Manager Hejmati, I'll take your second.
Second. First, perfect.
Any
Thank you.
questions for Ms. Cermak?
I got some comments if I could.
Go right ahead.
I am not technically qualified to make an analysis of this, but I was incredibly impressed with the process the staff put together in reviewing and picking the vendor. And I couldn't be more impressed with their thoroughness. So I'm very, very comfortable following their recommendation because this is really a complex issue, and our staff is really on top of it, and I really appreciated it and was impressed by it.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
No,
Yes.
just Gina, the 8 steps that they went through was really, really good too. They included everybody, did a lot of work on it. There was 8 little bullet points there that they took their time and got it all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Hijmati. May I make a comment?
Manager Hijmati, go ahead.
Yes, I've been, I've had the honor of being part of this, part of the liaison team, and I've watched them do their work, and they've done a really excellent job. And all the things that they have, like Jean said, those points that they listed, they did with real precision and care, and so I really support that. I want to go one step beyond that. They were also taking into account the implications for looking at this area wide. That is, they were looking at making sure that the stuff that what these firms were proposing is something that could be scaled up effectively across the region, not only technically, but also so that, because there are political implications of engaging people and then putting into practice and so on, and we talked about that at previous meetings. So the board has talked about that, and I really saw them attend to the big picture, and that sort of big picture I was very impressed with, that they attended to that and the technical details. So they really did a comprehensive and extensive, detailed job. That was my assessment of having been on the, for being a liaison.
Thank you, and thank you, Managers Miller and Hijmati, for agreeing to work on that project. That's great. Any other questions or comments from Ms. Cermak?
I just have a comment. Will you go back to the flood picture on Meadowbrook Lake? I just want to give the board members that haven't seen that before an idea how much water was, I guess you'd call it stored if it's flooded on Meadowbrook Golf Course during the 80 or 2000. Was it 16?
14.
Yeah, 14. That's the Meadowbrook Golf Course.
Dick, actually, this is Hiawatha Golf Course.
Hiawatha.
Oh, for crying out loud. Okay.
They both look very similar during 2014. The pictures
It's
are
water.
interchangeable.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. They look very much alike.
Except there are more bridges here.
And for the benefit of newer managers, we did have extensive aerial photography taken and a drone video, I think, made also during the flooding in 2014. And that is well worth a look sometime. Anything else before we go to vote? All right, then voting on 2191, Manager Sando. Manager Loftus.
Aye.
Manager Hijmati.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Manager Olson.
Aye.
And White votes aye as well. Thank you, Ms. Cermak.
Thank you.
Next, we have 11.4, Resolution 2192, concerning CAC appointments. Ms. Schnoes.
Thank you. Good evening, managers. It's great to be with you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, good. Step 1 accomplished. Tonight's action is to, let me pull up my slides first. Okay, so. Okay, and then is that working?
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing your sidebar of there. Now it's good.
Right, you're good.
Good? Okay,
Yep.
great. So my first agenda item for you tonight is to seek appointment of the 2022 membership of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And the recommendations that we have prepared for you are built upon the conversation we had on November 4th with the Operations and Programs Committee. The purpose of tonight is to, like I said, make that appointment, which is required by statute annually. And we've narrowed a recommendation to you to 15 individuals, but we only have 14 spots. So we're looking to the managers to do some deliberation of 2 finalists to arrive at a final slate of the 14. As some reminders, 2021 has been a year of change and development for the CAC as we aligned them with the organization's overall strategic direction. There were some new goals defined as well as structural elements clarified to make sure the CAC is best supporting the organization as a whole. Importantly, we brought a new emphasis on diversity for the CAC's membership, so that we can have a CAC that is reflective of our communities. We know that the membership are bringing new approaches to our work and overall having robust critical feedback on our key initiatives. Right now in the appointment process, we're nearing the end of really 5 months of activity to inform the recruitment and appointment of the membership for next year. This year's process has included some new features to support the new direction the CAC is going. In particular, I want to bring attention to demographic information, which we've collected for the first time. This private voluntary data was collected and is going to be used in an aggregate way to do year-over-year trend analysis going forward, so we can both understand who's serving on the CAC and how wide and effective our call for membership is in working towards those goals of attracting interest from a more representative sample of our community members. But even though we collect that information, that individual demographic data is not to be used for specific appointment decisions. So overall, this year we received 19 applications. We have 11 members currently on the CAC and 10 are interested in returning. We're recommending that all 10 are reappointed because they're continuing to serve well, which leaves 4 spots open for new members to join and fully fill out the full slate of the committee. We received 9 applications from residents who are new and interested in joining. Now, when we met with the OPC in November, we weren't sure if one of the current members who wanted to return would remain living in the district. And so we had to do a conversation in which you gave us some feedback about 5 potential new members. Well, we've subsequently learned that our member will be staying, which leaves us with only 4 spots for new members instead of the 5 that you discussed in November. Of those 9 that are remaining, 3 are really great, clear choices for recommendation, and you see them on this map in green. They all bring relevant professional and community experience and help expand our geographic representation. Now, like I said, we have board deliberation requested tonight for 2 members who both could be good contributions, and you can see them highlighted in purple here on the map. One of them is James Brimmeyer of St. Louis Park. He brings a lot of public service experience. He's worked with many of our partners, and he's connected within local and regional government. I will note that in addition to James, Lori Goldsmith, one of the other new members we're recommending, is also a resident of St. Louis Park. The other candidate we're hoping for you to consider for the 14th spot is Lisa Fowler, who lives in Minnetonka. She has a really nice background of civic engagement with the Minnetonka Historical Society as a Minnesota water steward and in conservation projects like the Huntington Shoreline Collaboration. And she'd be our only resident of the city of Minnetonka on the CAC. So as highlighted in the staff memo, we're recommending you consider each of these individuals' contribution to the CAC, as well as the group's overall mix of professional and geographic diversity as you make your decision tonight. Here you can see our recommendation for the full slate of 14, and some information I'd like to share because we're in a little unique position as we transition into having 2-year staggered terms. This is a unique year in that to get into an ongoing process of 2-year staggered terms, we have one awkward year of a 1-year appointment window for 7 members. We've made a decision of who's being suggested for a 1-year term and who's being suggested for a 2-year term on a number of considerations. First of all, we're accommodating preferences of the incumbent members of the CAC as we surveyed them earlier this fall on if they want to serve a 1- or 2-year term. We're giving priority for 2-year terms to new members of the CAC because we recruited them with the assertion that they would be serving a 2-year term as written in our new position description, and that will be the standard going forward. We also recognize that because the incumbents have led us through this realignment process this year, they well understand the transitional nature of the 1-year term right now. And so kind of get the messiness of it, and we can make a cleaner on-ramp for our new members without having to worry them with some of the details of what we've been working through. Also, just to reiterate, regardless of the term appointment right now, there are no term limits for the CAC members. So how someone is appointed tonight will not bear on how long they can serve the district going forward. So just as another way of seeing who's on the recommended slate, here you can see the current members who will be returning, the 3 new members we recommend, and the 2 finalists we hope you will deliberate on. I think overall, this slate is taking a positive first step towards the goal of the CAC in increasing the diversity of geographic, professional, and demographic diversity. And so the next steps for you are to finalize the slate of members and then pass the resolution before you to appoint next year's committee. So thank you. I welcome any questions and however we can be supportive of your deliberation.
Thank you, Ms. Schnoes. Mr. Smith, I'd like to ask you what you think is a good order of business for attacking, making the selection between the 2 alternates and then the resolution.
Madam President, you have some pretty wide discretion here. You could call for a nomination, so a manager could move to select one of those. First of all, you have the staff recommendations for the 3 positions that they recommend. That's one group, and you can decide if you want to discuss that. And then you can discuss if you want to, which of the other 2 you'd like to include in the 4. So to boil it all down, you can, a manager could move and name the 4 that they would like to elect or select. Could be seconded and voted on. Or you could go for the 3 recommended and then have a separate discussion and action between the 2. I hope that's somewhat clear.
Thank you. And then I was thinking that one of the options would be to get it on the table and then move for an amendment, or we could move the resolution specifying the name. I guess that's really what I was thinking about. All right, let us open discussion then about the choice between Mr. Brinmeyer and Ms. Fowler.
This Gene again, my little hand's not, I can't raise my hand.
Well, okay, the real one works too.
Yeah, okay. I would go for the first one to make the recommendation for the 3 originals and then have a little discussion on the last 2.
Okay,
Second.
let me just look for it, whether there's concurrence.
Yeah.
Are all managers comfortable with the first 3 names? I'm seeing a thumb up there.
Yes.
No one's uncomfortable
Yes.
with that?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
fine.
So that's not a motion yet, it's just a discussion. Thank you, Jean, for the suggestion. Now, does someone want to make a motion or discuss the question of which of the other 2 to choose?
So do you want a motion on the first one, the first three first?
No, I think we'll wait and move the entire
All at once?
resolution.
Okay, so now we're down to the two, the Lisa and James.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and I guess my recommendation would be to take Lisa. I did talk to Mr. Braemar today because I know him personally, and I think he as much as he's done for a lot of good for Salem's Park and the community and has done a lot of good stuff, I think he said the same thing, that maybe if Lisa would, if she's really that interested, but maybe he would just step aside. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate. He does a lot of different stuff. He does a lot of coaching and everything else. So I think commitment wise, everything else would probably be good. And I guess Lisa was pretty excited about getting on board. So I would certainly go with that, and that with no reflection on Mr. Braemar, because he's a great human being and a great person. But I think he just commitment wise, Lisa kind of said the same thing. Was just, you know, if he thought somebody else wanted it more, that he would step aside.
I wasn't paying enough attention. Was that a motion, Jean, or just your opinion?
Well, it was opinion to see if anybody else had any other seconds or thirds or fourths or.
Okay, other thoughts? I think you should go ahead and make a motion.
I would go along with what Jean said. This is the
Thank you, Arun. Jean, would you make that a motion then?
I'll make the motion to accept the original three, and to get down to the picking of the two, were to take Lisa, what was her last name again?
Fowler.
Yeah. To appoint to the Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Olson, second.
Okay, just voting on the list of four then. We haven't gotten to the resolution yet, or no, we're on the motion. Manager Olson?
Aye.
Manager Miller?
Aye.
Manager Maxwell?
Aye.
Manager Hejmati?
Aye.
Manager Loftus?
Aye.
Manager Sando?
Aye.
And Manager White votes aye. Then may I have a motion to adopt resolution 21092 using deleting the name of James Brunmeyer?
Maxwell moves.
Thank you, Manager Maxwell. Is there a second?
Sando
Hejmati
seconds.
Manager Sando seconds. Any further discussion? Then voting on the resolution, Manager Maxwell?
Aye.
Manager Olson?
Aye.
Manager Hejmati?
Aye.
Manager Miller?
Aye.
Manager Sando?
Aye.
Manager Loftus?
Aye.
Manager White votes aye. Thank you, Ms. Schnoes, and thank you, board. Then you have the next item also on our agenda. Go ahead, Ms. Schnoes.
Yes, thanks. I appreciate the chance for a double header tonight.
There you go.
Let me get those slides pulled up here. Close. Okay, that's confusing. There we go. Back to the beginning. There we go. Okay, is that working as desired?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
Wonderful. So I'm pleased to have as my second agenda item for you tonight, managers, a continuation of our website rebuild effort. Resuming and advancing in our phase 2 design build will position us to have a new website and much improved website, I should excitedly say, by October of next year. The purpose of the presentation tonight is to request action of you to authorize the release of a request for proposals to find the best vendor that can work with the district on phase 2 design and build activities. And the draft RFP, as well as a number of supporting documents, were included in your packet tonight. So as part of my presentation, first I'll cover the background of this project and the outcomes from our phase 1 activities. Then I'll review the component parts of what we anticipate phase 2 looking like and how we plan to approach the work. And again, I'll close by requesting your authorization and of course, again, welcome any questions and dialogue that is wanted. So as you all well know, the project to update our website began in 2018 with a clear recognition that the website was not serving the organization's strategic communications or technological needs. Since our current website was created over a decade ago, the technology has changed so much that the way we can promote a good and clean user experience, as well as the ease of maintenance on the back end, has just transformed substantially. We've also seen new federal legislation introduced to ensure accessibility that we must be in compliance with. In addition, over the decade of our current website's existence, it's become burdened with too much dated information and content that at this point is unwieldy to actively manage. And as the district looked to update its website, it really took an intentional approach of phasing the work and breaking it into 2 distinct phases. So phase 1 started in 2019 and was completed at the end of 2020 last year. And that work was focused on developing a content strategy to serve as a foundation for the new site. In phase 1, a really intensive research and engagement process unfolded that informed what that content strategy looked like. And as we look ahead to phase 2, which will hopefully soon follow, our goal is really to take the vision and roadmap that was created in the content strategy and bring it to reality and make sure it's addressing all of those concerns and shortcomings of the current site, while leveraging the new opportunities that are out there to help us really effectively communicate and serve our goals and strategy and audiences. So as I kind of like to think of it, the menu is set. Now we just have to finalize our recipes, buy ingredients, and get cooking. And so as we look to do that, there's been a year delay between phase 1 and phase 2 due to staffing changes in the outreach program. And so I'll walk us through kind of what we did in the content strategy a little bit more, so we're all grounded in that as we look to move into phase 2. So what is a content strategy? Really, it's how we're going to organize information on the new website. This image is pulled from it. It's the site map, and it's really the architecture, the blueprint of what will be on the new website. So to draw your attention to a few elements, the new website will have 6 main sections. The current site has 9, so we're going to be condensing the primary categories of information that we have. And those sections that we will have are permits, water data, recreation, what you can do, projects, and about us. In addition to defining the main sections of the website, the content strategy also dives into what the subpages are and what key content should be shared within each section of the website. In addition, this will really allow for an improved user experience and how they interact with our content. And what this sitemap and the overall architecture of the content strategy does is speak to how the different pages are interconnected so that someone can intuitively navigate throughout our information, and we can reduce the amount of duplicated content that shows up in multiple places. So digging in a little bit more on what the section pages key content will look like on the page, really it's about how we are breaking down our information and presenting it in more visual, short sections to make it a really simple piece of information to interact with. So this is the kind of about us page as it's drafted. And you'll see that really it has a lot of different types of information that are easily presented and could take you in any number of directions to dig more into our work, who we are, how we approach watershed management. Similarly, this is an example of the project's main page, and you see how it offers multiple starting points for someone who wants to learn about our projects, whether it's through looking at a focal geography or digging into a map that's showing all of our projects. Overall, what this new content strategy will do for our subpages is define an approach that really allows us to be more focused in the content we're presenting. It's going to allow us to pare down a lot of the information currently on our website and provide visitors a much easier way to navigate and access the information they really want and what they come to us looking for. Finally, you can know how you want to organize it all, but like, how are you going to really present it? Can it be effective in making that connection with the viewer? And so that's how it's written, or what the visuals are. And that's what's presented in the style guidelines contained at the end of the content strategy. So going beyond the structural elements to really the look and feel, how we tell our story. And the overall voice and tone that is suggested in the content strategy includes how we can optimize content to show up in online searches, how our visual strategy can really be evocative and engaging and inspiring, and what imagery we use, what colors we use, and how we can effectively use graphics instead of words in telling the story of the website. And in many ways, the style guidelines in this content strategy build upon our brand manual from 2015, but really take our branding to the next level with this project. And we have the opportunity to really integrate some of this exciting new direction more holistically through our communications through this project. In addition to having the content strategy created in phase 1, goals and principles for the update were also defined. And what we plan to do in phase 2 will continue to uplift and live into these goals and principles. So they won't be going away. Importantly, though, as we advance, we're wanting to add a 4th principle for consideration and as an additional consideration. And that is to really emphasize that websites aren't a one and done initiative. They aren't a fact sheet you make, print, and then have it on the shelf. They're much more dynamic. And once we launch this new site, we want it to not stop improving. We're going to continue curating it after launch. And really, that's how we are going to make it be the most effective tool for our communications and overall work as the district. So as you're well aware, we've had this strategy ready to go for over a year. And so it's been one of my priorities since beginning this fall to really reactivate and advance this initiative. And I'm pleased to share that we are really efficiently dusting things off and are well positioned to move forward. One important note as we move into phase 2 is that this fall we got news from our current website host, Fjord, that the security support for our current website will be sunsetting in November 2022. This is just, in fact, due to how old the current site is, and it would be more expensive to kind of address this security concern than just update the entirely new website. So what this means for us with this information is we must have our new website launched before that date, mid-fall next year. But also, again, that 4th principle I just named, that we want to kind of be much more dynamic and have closer attention to keeping our website up to date after phase 2 is completed. In addition, I engaged the program managers to do a close review of the content strategy, reaffirm that, a year on, this is the right direction still for the organization. And we were really positive in that conversation and know that it's a good direction to continue building upon. We did note a few areas where we want to kind of hone in at the beginning with the new vendor, but don't think we're needing to go back to the starting zone by any means. In addition, I conducted interviews with peers and web developers to really understand how our current setting and ambitions for phase 2 are seeming in their eyes. How realistic is it? And what I've learned is that we're really well positioned to find the right support as we need it and have everything we need now to be able to move forward with this work. Principally, what I've learned from these conversations is that our budget as we have it is appropriate and we'll get a good product with that. Our timeline is doable. We can get a high quality website delivered by mid-fall of next year. And we're really well positioned right now with all of the work we've done to date in phase 1 plus the dusting off activities this fall to release the RFP and really hit the ground running in the new year. So what will phase 2 look like? How will we approach it? First, as I said, our budget is looking good in the eyes of those I talked to, and we have it listed in the RFP as $80,000 to $100,000, which is in line with past project discussions. In addition, we named 8 key tasks in the RFP to guide the work of proposers. And while there's 8 tasks, they really can be considered in 3 key phases of work. So first is like honing, reviewing what we did before and just locking in the right approach going forward. Creating the new content and the new site itself, and then launching it. So not too complicated by there. So here you can see that within these 3 phases, our 8 tasks are all grouped, where we're going to take a close review of all the outputs, all the research that went into phase 1, so that whoever we hire is starting on the same level of understanding and same depth of understanding as we are. We're going to have a very intentional prioritization process to ensure we're making the right investment of time and content to have that launch ready next October. Establishing design themes, creating content, and then the actual coding and website development work will then all happen in the create phase. And launching sounds simple enough, but there will be a lot of site testing and staff training to ensure we have a secure, well operating website when it goes live, and that we're well equipped to maintain it on the back end. And then a lot of intentional work will go into planning for ongoing support and maintenance. And something I'm really excited about is this focus on enhancement projects. Again, it's not a one and done website launch, pat ourselves on the back when it's over, but we're going into the work at the front end, thinking about what other enhancements we want to do subsequently. And from some of my conversations with web developers, it could even be we get some proposals where some enhancement projects fit in the scope and budget of phase 2, just happen after that October 2022 launch date. So really is an exciting place to be moving forward with. So the overall timeline for this project is in your memo and in the RFP. We anticipate launching the RFP tomorrow if all goes well this evening. And we will launch it by posting it on our website, posting it with the League of Minnesota Cities, as well as doing a direct mailing to a number of web development firms that we've previously vetted and are kind of already know that they could be good partners for us. That RFP process will close on January 19th. Staff will prepare for a finalist round of interviews at the end of January, early February. And that week is noted on the RFP. So people who propose can be planning for their availability in advance. And any liaison associated with this project would be welcome to be part of that interview round if they are so interested. After interviews, we'll prepare a recommendation and selection and aim to bring a contract forward for the February 24th meeting next year. There's a chance if we're able to move swiftly, we could even hit the first meeting in February, but that's kind of a stretch goal. And all in all, this means that by March of next year, we'll be kicking off phase 2 with a great new partner and be well positioned to launch an amazing new website by October of next year. So I spoke a little bit about roles. So our internal team, as this project has reinvigorated, is led by myself as the outreach manager. I've built a website update core team that includes Alex Steele, our IT GIS coordinator, and Brian Beck, our research and monitoring manager. In addition, one of the key elements of the new website is really managing for how we are successfully doing data and software integration as part of the new site. And so our staff who are leading great work on the new permitting portal, as well as the ResNet water data dashboard, will be integrated into this project as it goes forward. Last week, I had the opportunity to brief Manager Olson on this work as our current IT liaison. And so he's kind of our de facto liaison at the moment, which we are very much appreciative of. But also if there's any other manager who wants to join on board now that we've kind of reinitiated things, that is of course welcome as well. And when we bring the phase 2 contract back in February, we will be outlining additional touch points throughout the phase 2 activities in which the board managers can be participating and helping guide and be a part of the activities. And then the CAC, has been important to this work to get it to this stage. And engaging, and the website is already on the tentative schedule for their work next year. And so they will definitely be part of it as it moves forward. So with that, I do welcome questions, but the request that we have for you tonight is to authorize staff to release the website redesign request for proposals for phase 2. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a great place to be. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2193?
Heshmati, so moved.
Thank you, Manager Hechmati. Is there a second?
Sando seconds.
Thank you, Manager Sando. Any questions for Ms. Schnoes? Manager Maxwell.
I guess that great job. She did a great job on it. It sounds like it's really going to be an exciting project, but after it's launched, what kind of advertisement, if you want to call it, or what kind of outreach we're going to have to make sure that all citizens in the whole area are well aware of it? Could we go to like each city's cable TV station and put a little blurb on there to make people more excited about it than just to go to view it? Some other things maybe that you were thinking about, just for basically as an advertisement for the site.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I had a line written into the draft RFP that we would work with the vendor in task 8 to plan for communications surrounding the website launch. But I think, you know, it's a little premature at this point, but I think your point is really well taken, that in addition to our new outreach strategy and all the exciting work happening at the district, we don't want to update this and then let it kind of, you know, be the secret in the background. And so definitely planning for robust communications is overall part of that work as we rebuild the outreach program, but something that we'll definitely keep intentionally in mind as we move into phase 2. So thank you, Manager Maxwell, for that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I knew you're probably thinking about that too, but I just wanted to bring it up. But yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Loftus.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate, I know you showed a very brief slide on the content strategy, and I don't take that as representative of the entire content strategy. However, it appeared to mostly focus on who we are and the work we've done, which is important. But I just wanted to underline my goal with this project is to make all of our great data and science useful to the public, meaning when do they come to our website? They want to know water levels. They want to know if they can kayak the creek. They want to know the grade in our whiskey program of their water quality before they buy a house or the house they live in. So that would be, at least from my perspective, the underlying focus is what information they want to find, and how do we make sure it's usable to them. And I think that's been reiterated through the content strategy, but I just wanted to mention it based on the slide that was showed was much more focused on us as a district. And I just want to remind us of the external focus of the user that hopefully this website has. And then second, to just thank you for picking up this ball and running with it. It's been some time, and I look forward to it crossing the finish line. So thank you.
Definitely. And just to respond, I'd say the most robust internal conversations we've had is about that data integration and how we're foregrounding that as most important in the RFP. And several of the firms that I did my vetting with are more on the software engineering and development side than the glitzy marketing side, in part because I know that the water data is so important to the district and so important to what we want to do, and bringing powerful visualizations of that data meaningfully to the public and to our partners. So point very well taken, and it is something that's close to how we're managing the project as we move into this phase.
Thank you. Other questions? All right then. Voting on adopting resolution 2193. Manager Loftus.
Aye.
Manager Sando.
Aye.
Manager Miller.
Aye.
Manager Hejmati.
Aye.
Manager Maxwell.
Aye.
Manager Olson.
Aye.
And Manager White votes aye. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Ms. Schnoes.
Well done, Helen.